All right. Hi, everyone. And this is episode 129 of A Conversation About Art. I am your host, Gabriela Handal, and today I'm talking with returning guest and artist Kevin Scott Davis. So, Kevin, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Kevin Scott Davis, and I am an artist and returning guest. I do a bunch of things. I used to do a lot of music. I have a degree in music composition from way back in the day and found myself kind of transitioning to art back in 2021, where I took up drawing again, just kind of for my own pleasure. And that's kind of turned into, I don't want to call it a serious thing, but I fell in love with it, and it sort of superseded the music in a lot of ways. But we can talk about that more later. But I'm kind of a musician, artist, designer, teacher, jack of all trades, master of none.
Okay. All right. So I think there was something in there about how music isn't as serious anymore. Are you just not doing it anymore, or what?
Well, I said I didn't want to call art serious, but the implication, I guess you're right, was that I'm not so busy with music anymore. I've been doing that for, I always say 20 years, but I got to really calculate that math because I've been saying that for a couple of years. I went to college for music, and but when I was a kid, it was visual art. I was really into comic books and cartoons and stuff like that, and I think we talked about that a little bit last time I was on the show, but I kind of left that behind when I started playing guitar as a teenager, and then just really didn't do any art throughout college, and then years and years into my adult life, and just picked up a simple pencil and a sketchbook back in 2021 and started drawing every day, and just really, it just felt like a revelation. Like, it felt like I had been away from home for a really long time, and that was actually, it felt like that was actually returning to something that was probably a more natural talent, if you believe in the word talent, than music has ever been. So, but I worked really hard at music for a long time. I'm not putting it all in past tense. I'll always be a musician, but I'm on a hiatus from the band that I was working in indefinitely right now. And kind of thankfully so, because I struggled for a few years there, kind of chasing two rabbits, where art was kind of becoming this real passion, but I felt like I couldn't give it the time that I wanted to give it while I was still making albums and working on music. And so, I won't say that there's not going to be another Glowworm album, which is the name of the group that I've been playing in, and this is kind of the name of my project, but not for a while. And so it's been really the first big break in any sort of active music making that I've done in close to 20 years or something like that.
Okay. Yes. I almost kind of want to get into more about your relationship with both music and with visual art, because I mean they both are art.
Yeah.
And it seems like, and really this is just an impression, so I'm not saying that's what it is. So then maybe you can, like, I don't know, tell me what you think about my impression.
Fire away.
Yeah, okay. Because it seems like, I mean, do you think there's something with visual art, in the sense, with drawing, that there is something to the novelty and the it still feeling new, and, like you were saying earlier, that it doesn't feel as serious, or that you don't want to ascribe a seriousness to it, like, kind of like that baggage and that load of work,
Yeah.
versus having had music for so long with that load, in the sense that you're like, oh my god, stop, like, like, I need a break from it. But at the same time, that is still, very creative. And I mean, and of course, visual art can also have that load. I mean, lots of artists, what they do for a living is commissioned work, for example, which, I mean, that's like, I don't know, maybe the analog perhaps of producing scores for movies or something like that. or just trying to do your own personal, what would be otherwise personal work, but kind of in a with a schedule where you release an album every 2 years, for example.
Yeah.
So then it kind of puts a load, some kind of a load that is perceived to be negative. So what do you think about that, about all that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is something I'm struggling with kind of kind of always, but at the moment it's pretty pertinent because I think last time that we talked, I was saying, well, I was really burnt out with music, and the freshness of being a beginner in something like art was really life-giving to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that experience is true. But now that it's been a couple years and I'm not pouring as much time into music semi-professionally, professionally, whatever you want to call it. At times it has been my job, at times not. So I wouldn't say, my band was never well known or anything like that, but I do make some money from licensing, and I get royalties every month, a small amount, but it helps. It's like a
Right.
part-time job.
Mm.
Um, and so yeah, there was that element of like you've been doing something for 20 years and then you're kind of always working. Well, let me add that this is troublesome, especially if you have any kind of perfectionist tendencies, which I have had. And I've worked pretty actively over the last few years to temper that.
Mm.
Um, Going to art and doing something that I felt like, I'm not great at, but just felt like it stemmed more naturally
Right.
from myself. Like it just wasn't, music was always hard to me, but I always loved listening to music. I always wanted to do stuff like my favorite bands. I had
Mm-hmm.
clear examples of stuff I wanted to make that was like X. With art, it's funny because I love art. I love all kinds of artists, but I struggle to name a favorite artist. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing a lot of inventory lately of like, what did I do the other day? Where you sit down and you look at all the art that has inspired you from childhood up to now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's a really simple term. What is it? Anyway, if I think of it, I'll tell you. But I did a little Photoshop, like kind of like a not a Pinterest board, but a mood board of all my influences from the Ninja Turtles
Mm-hmm.
to Colleen Berry, and like trying to figure out um, what kind of art it is that I want to make. And so I'm kind of like transitioning to that period now where I'm getting a little bit more serious and focused in my art because I want to get better at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think last time I talked to you, I was just like in my own little world, just really enjoying it, using it as a meditation and a way to break away from technology. So this is kind of a rambling answer, but with music, you get to a professional level with something, and your judgment of what you make is necessarily a bit stricter, and then it goes back to that sort of like we all drew when we were children, and none of us judged it because
Mm-hmm.
we were just free and playful, and so there's something very pure and sort of like at the beginning of my drawing, I wanted to fiercely sort of defend that place. I put a lot of self-imposed, like self-growth goals on myself all the time, and like all other areas of my life. And so I just wanted an area to be free of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of slowly tiptoeing into like, okay, well, maybe I need to do some fundamentals, and maybe I need to practice gesture. And like now I have a weekly schedule that I'm going to try out. And I'm a little bit scared of that
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know if I want art to be a career or not. Um, but yeah, I could talk about it every which way right now because it's sort of tangled up. I'm not going to lie. Like, my transition out of music is a little bit tangled up. I think at the core of who I am is just I've always been an artist, and this is just a different medium. This is
Mm-hmm.
visual, whereas that was sound. I don't know if that really answers your statement or your question
Sure.
well, but does that help?
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah,
Okay.
and I actually have more questions, or more I wonder further about it, because it makes me think of the kind of, I mean, again, kind of like the negative load that is applied to art, be it visual or whichever other, dancing or music, like you were doing. Um, a lot of people will argue that, applying the business view to art will tarnish the work. And oh, you're not going to enjoy it anymore. It's not going to be genuine anymore. It's not going to be pure anymore. It's not going to be legitimate, whatever, this type of language applied
Mhm.
to that. And I'm not sure that I agree with that. I don't think it necessarily makes sense because, I mean, I don't understand why it can't be an activity just like any other activity that people do for work. And it's like, if you're going to do something for work, meaning just in general, take it seriously in the sense that you want to get better at it and you want to derive a salary from it, money from it in general. I don't understand how you're going to do that if unless you take it seriously as if it was a business, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, that means that sometimes you will have to do things that you're not as crazy about as when you have free reign on something, or and it also means that you're going to have to maybe work with people who you don't like, for example. And that goes, in the case of art, for example, it goes whether you're teaching, and it goes whether you're making commissioned work or whether you're making graphic design, this type of stuff. And I think this argument that it tarnishes the work or the legitimacy of the work comes from art for the last just over 100 years being touted as supposed to just be about the genius, the feelings, and the whimsical life of the dissolute person who's a drunk,
Yeah.
has no aim in life, like this, the actual stereotype of this very romantic artist life. Whereas before, for the salons, the French Academy, this type of stuff, it was like I was actually able to come upon the curriculum of the École des Beaux-Arts at around like the 1890s, and that shit was rigorous. It was difficult to get in, it was difficult to be there, and you didn't even have to pay. Like, you didn't have to pay tuition, you just paid for your materials and showed up. But then you had
Mhm.
to do stuff, like
Yeah.
specific stuff. Like, you couldn't be there listening to a song and be like, yeah, just paint what you interpret. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This time you couldn't do that. And it's like, I don't,
Yeah.
I just feel like we have really done ourselves, humans, a disservice by twisting art in that way. So I don't know, but at the same time, to be fair, um, I don't know that I personally would necessarily like that. Like, I struggle a lot with that idea. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take my work seriously. I want to make money from my drawings, this type of stuff. And it's like, okay, but then you still, even if you want to stick with drawing whatever you want, like, you still have to, submit work to galleries and submit things to grants. And you still have to post on the Instagram, like whatever. Like, that's business side of the work. Like, you still have to do it, you know? So kind of there's
Yes.
no
I
way
mean,
out of it in a way if you really want to take it seriously, So what do you think about that?
I think you're framing it in terms of making some kind of a living from it,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So I would say that that's all true. But I would ask you, and I would ask myself, I ask myself all the time, what would I be doing uh, artistically if no one was watching? Is it nothing? Because, okay, then there's a valid answer. Is it something? Is it a form of expression? And if so, what is that? Where's that coming from? And what does that mean? First of all, apart from any monetary assignation or whatever. So this is a whole long rabbit hole, but can you answer that? Like, can you answer that now? Apart from any of that, when you're alone in your apartment and you're in New York, right?
Yeah. In an
And
apartment,
you're
yes.
in a flow state and you're making your art, are you are you thinking about who's going to buy it, or are you thinking about something else? And then there'll be more to this if you be so brave to answer that one first.
Sure. Um I try not to think of what I'm going to do with the work once it's done.
Yeah.
So while I'm making the work, I try to kind of stay within the range of, does this look right to me? It's like, do I like this? Is it
Yeah.
looking right? Is it looking correct? Can it be better? Is it good? Like
Yeah.
I try to stay there. And then once the work, once it got to the point where it's up to this, my own demands, then I'm like, I want to sell this. I should show it, or I should post about
Let's
it. And then the post is going to be
yeah.
like, this is available for sale, DM me, like this type of
Right.
stuff, or like I'll try to
Right.
show it or something. But
Right.
not while I am making the work. No.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Like that's pretty much describes me if I'm selling anything. So far I've tended to not. I've tended to say no because I haven't been real clear on this. And I think this is the struggle that all artists face walking the line. There's a couple things here if I can get my brain to sort them, that I think you might think I would love to hear from you about too, and you might find interesting, which is work as craftsmanship versus artwork as craftsmanship versus artwork as intent. Like I think you mentioned that was it the Beaux Arts exhibition you were talking about back at that time. It wasn't really even considered that art could be more conceptual. It was sort of began as like this tutored understudy kind of craft that everyone had to do this rigorous training to become a more like I think artist was used to be a very practical word. Like it was like dentist. This person
Right.
is able to make uh mural X or whatever if we hire this person on our wall in our church. That's what they do. That's their job. And so that there was a lot more clarity when it came to you pay artist this, artist does this craftsmanship. This you might as well be like, I mean, of course there's beauty involved in things like that. And that's kind of where we go sideways here. But then it becomes, well, the modernists and more conceptual based schools, it becomes all about the intent. What is the artist trying to express or say? And that doesn't require any hard skills necessarily. It can involve them, and so that's, we're talking about two different things there. And I think that's where the waters get a little bit muddy. I personally think that they're equally valid, but I think that sometimes um, when one singular person is getting paid for a work of art, it by it by necessity dictates that that piece of art becomes just that little less bit universal. Does that make sense?
Would you repeat that, please?
Yeah, I'll see if I can. So, say you're an illustrator,
Mm-hmm.
you're selling a trade.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just give you an example. I will repeat what I said, but I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was a couple of illustrators who I admire, I
Mm-hmm.
respect. I'm kind of exploring the world of commercial illustration right now
Mm-hmm.
myself,
Mm-hmm.
but I have a lot of questions about this too.
Sure.
But they were kind of complaining that their work on Instagram doesn't get all as many sort of like likes and stuff like that as like somebody rendering a realistic eye or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying like, I don't care about rendering realistically. Like I have a photograph, I can take a picture of, my friend anytime I want. Ours is more conceptual or whatever. But these are two illustrators that are illustrators being paid for every single the drawing they do or whatever for their work.
Right.
And I think that points to the fact that the audience knowing like that this piece was made for an editorial that a company paid this person for makes it a little bit less universal. Does that make sense? Than just someone making art for art's sake.
I don't
I feel like
understand the use of the word universal. I
okay,
don't
so
understand that's what I don't understand. Like, why does that make it less universal?
I'm kind of asking too.
Because
Because if we're talking about beauty
uh-huh,
and its relationship to art,
right,
beauty as at once both extremely subjective but also universal.
right.
And so maybe we need to back up a little, but talking about craft versus intent, um, as soon as you bring money into it, there is a little bit of a problem with art for art's sake. Whereas your audience can be relating to it, and it's something that is moving them because they're having an experience of resonance, of harmony with this moment of beauty. And that would be very, very pure in a perfect world where we were making art. Um, we can get into this more later because I think it has more to do with like the what is art, what is beauty questions. Um, but I am just positing the question myself. Is that the trouble that we have as artists making money from our work? It sounds like you're coming from more of a craftsman and artisan standpoint. And would you say that you consider yourself to be a draftsman, a craftsman, an artisan, more so than, obviously more so than like a conceptual artist, right?
Um, I'm not sure. I think
Okay.
no, go ahead, sorry.
No, it's
Continue.
okay. I don't know if I have any more to say down that road, but I feel like I'm just confused you
No, no, no.
more
It's
than
just that,
anything.
I actually think that the entire conversation would not this conversation specifically. Um the conversation about in general would actually be easier if there were less things.
Yeah,
Because for example, the idea that whether the viewer knows that this image is compromised because it's part of a contract to be on the CD covers or on a book cover or on the box cover of a product, I that does not concern the viewer. Not to mention that, I mean, how often does a viewer know that information? And
right,
also there's
right,
the whole thing, there's another thing. So there's that, and I think that ties a little bit to the idea that is also conceptual, part of the conceptual art, about the concept itself. It's like, oh, what is this work, or the intent, I guess, that you were talking about. What is this work about? What did the artist want to say? That doesn't concern the viewer, in my opinion, as I've recently come to agree with, because I didn't come up with that myself. Um, I don't think that concerns the viewer. It isn't. I don't think that is part of the viewer experience. I think that is secondary to the viewing experience, which should come first foremost. That is the most important part of the relationship of a viewer and a work of art. In my like, that's what I think now. Um,
right.
and what was the other thing? I just think there's a few things that have been added into, like, again, in the last century, which is really not that long, that have really muddied, like, again, have made the waters difficult, unnecessarily difficult. Not just difficult, but unnecessarily so. Um and I think that it is a detriment not just to the viewer but also to the artist, themselves, whoever he or she is.
Okay. And you're talking about the detriment being um, the sort of removal of uh, the priority placed on craftsmanship. Am I getting
No, the
that right?
priority that is actually placed on concept, on the idea of
Right.
behind the
So
work,
the
like, oh, the
removal of craftsmanship. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, like, the because it's too much idea and not enough
Yeah.
skill and art.
Okay, so
Where at
skill is what you're talking about.
right, so then that becomes secondary and unimportant. And
Yeah.
so then when you go to the museum, you have like your plaque with the paragraph that explains what the artist meant, and then it's like, I don't. I make it a point, even when I go to the Met, to go to the stuff that has nothing to do with that, which is centuries before. I don't even read that stuff because um that's not part of the it's like secondary to the experience of that interaction between the viewer and the work of art. And maybe I can send you the this episode afterwards if you listen to stuff while you're working or whenever you do. um but this I had a man named Robert, a fellow artist named Robert Florzak, who by the way is also a musician and a visual artist like you. And he kind of illustrated this upon me and illuminated me about it, about how that whole thing, because that has always felt wrong to me about it. It's like the whole plaque and the whole conceptual stuff, and it's like, okay, so then what if you, Scott, are showing this work to an illiterate person that cannot read and does not speak your language? Then what are you going to do with your concept? Your work has to stand on its own because it's visual, right? And the quintessential crosser of language barriers is music, right? Because
Yes.
I
I
can
think
listen and enjoy thoroughly music in whatever language, Japanese, things that I've never, I mean, I can, of which I understand no words. And it is irrelevant what the song is saying. I don't care because I like what it sounds like and I just make the sounds and or hum along, right?
yeah.
So it's like, so I think that is um evidence in favor of the concept part being irrelevant in terms of the relationship of the receiver of the work and the work, you know?
Yeah. I think that's a good comparison, a really good comparison between the, like, again, that word universal that I'm using a lot, but
Right, yeah.
music can be felt and understood in that way without, it transcends boundaries. And we all, as long as we have sight, it's the same thing with visual art, which is we can look at a piece without having to read anything. Someone who's illiterate can look at and understand a piece of visual art. I think that's a really good point and a really good analog there. But I think you were talking about specifically, you're talking about visual art, which the argument could be made that's one component underneath a larger umbrella of art. And what I'm thinking of when I'm saying that, and I'm not trying to push back on you because I disagree, because I completely agree with you, but it goes back to that question of what is art.
Sure.
So yeah, visual art should have craftsmanship, but I think there's beauty in in a lot of things. There's what about a mathematical equation, like that someone might call so revelatory that it is beautiful? Wow, that's really beautiful. That's a concept, and could you argue that that's art, or a well-written or a metaphor that's really beautiful, that has some beauty in it? Is that an artful piece of writing that this author has written or whatever? So I'm just saying that there is a broader definition of art, which you may or may not agree with, but in terms of talking about specifically visual art, and I also am someone of the tradition who places kind of more importance on the, I'm a drawer, I'm a draftsman, and so I agree with you there. But I think this all funnels down from the source, which is has to be defined first, which is what is
Sure.
art. And I think we're talking about specifically visual stimulus. There's auditory stimulus. There's, if we're talking about beauty and beauty being linked to art, which I don't know if you wanted to save that for later, but it's in my head now.
Yeah,
Like,
go
you
ahead.
could say that an act of kindness is beautiful, or a feeling of peace, or a sweeping vista, or all these things. So sound can be beautiful, speech can be beautiful, spoken word, is that art? So I think visual art is and I'm not trying to reduce it, but it's a component of possibly something a bit broader if you're using capital A art. Does Does that ring true at all, or do you agree with that?
Sure. Yeah. No. I mean, I agree with it. I mean, my husband and I, we were having conversation about how when you try too hard put to draw lines between things, to kind of draw the line, kind of like the harder that you try to draw a line of, when does red stop and it starts being orange or something, it becomes more and more difficult and maddening. um and I mean, I guess I kind of think that, again, part of the reason for which it's so difficult for us to part of the reason for which we're even asking the question, what is art, it's because it's been so tarnished and kind of so many things have been allowed, quote unquote, under it. um
Yeah.
and I mean, under the umbrella of the word. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't include many things, because I think it does. Like, I mean, I think music, visual art, dancing, um, and I guess I'm not entirely sure what are all like the humanities, which are, art. And I think there's literature under there as well. Although literature, I don't think has necessarily the universality that music and visual art can have, in the sense that
For
it
the
doesn't
reason that
matter.
you,
Right,
yeah, that
because you
you
have
gave
to
yourself.
read, and that's like another thing. It's like we haven't been reading for that long. I don't know if you
Yeah,
know, but we haven't been reading or writing for that long.
yeah.
But
It's
either
not.
way, yeah. No, what?
Um, it's not intrinsic in the sense that our visual and auditory stimulus are. I mean, we're born with those things.
Right, yeah, not just that, and we've been doing both of those really way, way longer than we have been
Oh, you
writing.
mean
So
historically? Yeah, I
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah, exactly. So, and it's like, for writing, you have to kind of like the bar of entries that you have to first learn how to read, and then you also have to understand the language. So you kind of have a barrier of entry there. Whereas, again, for music or for visual work, well, and for dancing either, really, you don't need either one of those things. So, because I agree, I wholeheartedly agree that beauty is indeed universal. Um, I think, I guess, if I wanted to think about what is art, it would at least start there. And then it's like, oral, auditory, visual, and the dancing, because I just don't remember the other things right now, I guess. And then within each one of those three categories, then you have to do the thing well, like skill, doing it right.
Well, that's part of your definition then.
I guess, yeah, I guess it is.
Um, and I'm not disagreeing. Because for me, as this is, I'm taking this into the subjective now. You said
Sure,
beauty is universal, but I also think it's very subjective. I think it's both at the same time. And
sure.
that's why this stuff's hard. Like, this stuff's hard to compartmentalize because of these things, because of these dichotomies that are sort of paradoxical. Sorry, my dog's in the corner here, and
No
she's
problem.
she's really old, and she's been kind of
Aw.
struggling lately. So I have to. She's okay. She's good. So what was I saying? So your definition of art for you includes some requirement of skill. But what if I said that? Is that accurate? I don't mean to put
Yeah, sure.
words in your mouth, but
Yeah,
like, let's just say for the sake of argument that it requires some level of craftsmanship,
sure.
like in the old-fashioned sense, where you're mentored under a master, and at some point, you know, but what if the art is just simply the act of creation or the experience of the act of creation? When does it hit that level and tick over from red to orange? When you're suddenly good enough to now, yesterday it wasn't art, but today it is. Like, it's just really a really hard thing to define. But I know where you're coming from, and I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate
No,
because
that's fair. That's perfectly
this was
fair.
really, I mean, that's why we've been arguing about this for decades and decades too. But
Right.
like, I tend to think that art in the broad sense, in the broadest sense, is an act of creation. My worldview kind of said, I think we talked about this last time, where I kind of likened it to like this problem that we have, that we all woke up on this spinning rock in space, and the only thing we know for certain is that we're going to die someday, right?
Sure.
So the act of creation flies in the face of that. And I think it's an act of bravery in the face of this corrosion, spiritual corrosion, and things like that. I don't want to
Sure.
get super weird, but to me, that's kind of what art is. And then underneath that, there's visual art. And what Marcel Duchamp did, we're saying, is not visual art, because it's not.
Right. That's what I'm
He
saying for
did
sure.
something. He did something, and he did something significant, but it wasn't draftsmanship, and it wasn't, oil painting. It wasn't drawing. It wasn't visual art. It was conceptual art. And, neither of us sitting here are conceptual artists. But yeah, I just think it's problematic to try to say that, okay, what about play? Like, that's a good example, maybe.
A play?
Um, yes, the
Right.
idea of play. Rather than just skill and intellectual cerebral workings, would you say that there's a component in art making that has to do with play and freedom of expression? What about when we're
Sure.
kids, before we're really good at it? Is that art, or is that not art because you're 4 years old and the yellow sun in the house and the green grass you drew sucks? Is that not art?
Not sure.
Because that's
I
play.
don't
That's pure,
perhaps know.
pure, coming from a place of pure expression, and almost, like, I would say, even more pure than a lot of art that adults make, because there's no judgment happening there.
Sure.
But we could either define it as that's not art yet, which could be valid if we're talking about it in terms of pure craftsmanship, or it is art, but it's based on intent and maybe playfulness. And those
Hmm.
things don't require skill.
Right.
So I'm,
Sure. No, I mean, I think that's a perfectly valid question, because you have, of course, the classic mom and dad that are super proud of the little house with the sun and stuff,
yeah,
and they put it up on the refrigerator, this type of stuff. Like, and they should be proud because that's cool that your kid finally has enough motor skills to do that. That's great. But I'm not sure whether that indeed falls into the scope of art. And speaking of skill, because I guess I don't want to insinuate. I also don't want to insinuate that that is all that matters, because it's not.
yeah,
Um, but I don't think what gives a work of art its importance in terms of whether it's beautiful, well made or not, is necessarily the skill. Because like, if you were to look at a catalog of the work that was shown in the French salon, those went through a filter of harsh judgment in order to get into
yeah,
the salon, so that lots of people that had their own skill, because that those are the people who were judging the work that was getting into the salon. It was other artists who themselves had a lot of experience being artists, and also had shown in the salon before, and also had been to the École des Beaux-Arts. um but even there was work that was, even in this pool of work that was judged to be very good, there was still a hierarchy of stuff that is clearly superior to everything else. So it's not just it isn't, skill is not the only thing that is um part of the judgment of when one looks at a work of art. There's a bunch of other
yeah.
things.
But I do think I agree with you in that it's important. I personally think, and this is subjective again, moving back to the subjective, that the best works of art have both. So they have skill and a sense of idea, a sense of playfulness, a sense of concept, a sense of freedom of expression, but that they employ both. Because you can find examples of the extremes on other end, excuse me. But you just said, and I think rightfully pointed out that, or all say that nothing but craftsmanship, say you just, you do bark plates your whole entire life for the rest of your life. That's great craftsmanship, but I don't think most people would want to stay there and call it art. That's, excellent craftsmanship on your way to being able to take that and then express something that is reflecting your view of the world with it, with those tools that you've worked really, really hard to develop. You know what I mean? But you don't
Sure.
want to stay in that place of making bargs all your life or whatever. That's kind of where I am currently. My thoughts on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I just yeah, and I guess also uh going back to the kid who draws and kind of like the purity of the pure play, pure feeling and this type of stuff. I
Yeah.
think I think there's also something to be said for like, yeah, that's cool that you have this desire to do something, but then it's unfettered and it's untempered
Mhm.
and it's undirected and so it's chaotic. It's like
Mm.
disorderly and random and it's like that it's that isn't strictly that's not going to lead to that universal sort of the universality of whether it be art, music,
Yeah.
or dance. Because then it's like, in dance, it's like, all right, you're convulsing on the floor. That's not dancing, you know? So, yeah, it's like you're Yoko Ono. That's not music. So
I've never even heard her music. I don't,
I made it
I've
a
never
point,
heard it.
occasionally I'll make it a point to listen or read to something that I just have heard over and over again. It's really, really bad. But then I'm like, all right, I want to hear it from the horse's mouth. And make my own opinion. So I did, and yeah, Yoko Ono is fucking terrible. And
Well, she's a conceptual artist,
no,
so
no, that does not no, that doesn't work. That does not
I'm
work
not,
because
I'm not, I'm not defending her. I'm just saying it seems like there's a pattern here. You have some strong ideas about the conceptual side of things, which is, you know, valid. And I tend to feel the same way. But yeah, I'm just laughing because I've never heard her music, but I imagine that it's pretty out there.
I mean, I mean, maybe you should for the sake of having the information available to you. There's this. I think
Sure.
it's like
Yeah,
the
I won't pass
only.
any judgments until I do.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like um one of the ones that I listened to was her singing with a band of people who knew what they were doing. And it was in such stark contrast. Like her just unfettered and unwilling to polish a skill, unwillingness to polish the skill of singing,
Yeah.
versus the guys with whom she was performing, because it was a live show, by the way.
Hmm.
Um, and the guys they're doing their job just fine. And
Yeah.
it's terrible. It's really bad. And
Well,
it's like, it is so unfair to them, to the people who
I
put
that
effort
there's
in.
something there. There's something
Yeah,
to that. There's something to that. It's audacious to say, yeah, I'm going to get up here and scat or whatever in my own unlearned way with a bunch of people who've been studying this all their lives
right.
and dedicating themselves, which is a noble pursuit. So it kind of, in a way, feels like a middle finger to that, which I think historically it has been. I think people have tried to question this and done so pretty effectively by, I mean, what about punk rock? Like, there's so many things we can talk about. But what I wanted to say also is that even though I've been sort of playing devil's advocate and pushing back a little bit, I
No,
will
I think that's
say,
fine.
okay, well, just for the sake of conversation,
Yeah.
because, oh, I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh no.
next, next, I was going to say that, oh,
You're playing devil's
I,
advocate.
I,
Yes.
I have perfectionist tendencies.
Sure.
So in pushing back on you, I'm really pushing back on myself, because I tend to, if I'm being perfectly honest, in the past, I've tended to find it a safer space to hide behind, study technique, and being good. being good
Sure.
at something. My weaknesses, and I'll just tell you for the sake of this argument, are riskiness, being brave. Like I always want to be prepared. And when I used to
Right.
play music, I was the band member who wanted to practice like 4 times a week, or whatever. But I was scared to death to go on stage without being completely prepared. However, I've known people who can show up that day, with a hangover or whatever, and get on the drum set. And maybe they don't play the best they've ever played, but they have moments where they're so, I want to say, they have such a lack of self-awareness that they have these brilliant moments that would never happen if they were being so careful and so tight like I often was. And I find the same thing in art. And I'm working actively to balance that. And for me, it's not one or the other. And let me just make this clear, because I've said a lot of things during this podcast that were just for the sake of argument. I'm not a conceptual artist, so I don't, but I don't see anything in black and white. So for me, at 44 years old, one of the biggest truths I've come to be able to hold on to, and one of the few, is the middle of the road, man. Like, to me, both are true. Art is play, art is concept, art is the ineffable, that something that you can't quite put a finger on. And then art is also equally craft, skill, discipline, noble pursuit of, these things. But for me as a perfectionist, I've tended to hide behind technique or lack some of the bravery and freedom of expression that my drummer friend had, or, um, there's, I said I was kind of exploring illustration, and I am doing that right now because I wanted to ask you about this. I know we don't have a lot of time left. There seems to be two schools of thought in drawing. Now I'm kind of transitioning into drawing. One of them, the atelier based style, which I learned on my own, so
Mhm.
not super hardcore or anything like that. But I did the bark plays at home, and I
Okay.
would say that it was based on straight lines, comparative measurements, and not as strict as sight size, but a pretty strict way of drawing. And
Yeah.
it got results. It got me results really fast. Um, because it was very calculated and very careful.
Hmm.
So it takes a long time to do each drawing, but the result is pretty good, pretty awesome. But right now I'm exploring this absolutely completely, it seems to me, opposite. And I want somebody with some experience to tell me why this is. School of thought, which animators, comic book artists, and all these other people embrace, which is like, you don't do any measuring. You just you use curvy lines, use gesture, and you don't worry about getting it right the first time or spending 20 hours on one drawing, but you just do 20,000 drawings until your intuitive sense starts to catch up with your hand and eye movement, and it becomes loose and expressive.
Hmm.
And nobody's going to say draw a straight line in those schools of thought, which
Hmm.
is so opposite from what I learned in atelier style training. I think both are equally valid, but right now I'm trying to figure out which one am I like. And so I discovered, as I started learning some of this stuff from illustrators and cartoonists and stuff, that I hold my pencil super tight at the bottom. I always have,
Yeah.
even when I write, and my lines are always really scratchy. And you're not supposed to do that with these big, flowy, gestural things. And so I'm kind of right now spending a lot of time just drawing circles and lines and cylinders and spheres and stuff like that as warm-ups before I draw, retraining my hand completely, like uh, holding my pencil further back, like on the barrel, and it feels like I just regressed in my drawing like 4 years. My drawings are so bad right now, but I'm trying to sort of unlearn this really careful stuff. So anyway, that was kind of a long tangent. I really wanted a chance to ask you about that today, though, if I could,
Yeah, of
because
course.
I wanted to know your opinion on that and why there seems to be two schools of thought that way.
Well, Um, I guess kind of to use your own arguments from earlier, they're kind of both right in a way.
Yeah.
They both have their use. And I don't think that you should think of it necessarily as unlearning something, rather as adding something to your toolbox, and then you can choose to draw one way when you need to, and then choose to draw the other way when you need to.
Okay.
And also, I think that for both methods, quote unquote, um, for both methods, you're always going to just draw and erase until it looks right. I'm not entirely sure that getting it right from the very first line. I'm not sure that I believe that, or
Yeah.
that I trust that, or that I believe it when somebody says that.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I
mean, you're
think,
right. Even with
yeah,
academic drawing, you
yeah, you
still
gotta move.
erase.
You're gonna end up moving it around. I mean, and that's
Right.
fine.
Right.
That's not a big deal at all. And like the day before yesterday or something, I was talking with like an atelier type person because I have that's not how I was. That's not how I learned. That's not how I learned how to draw. That's not how I learned to draw. And I kind of have like a weird personal, maybe ignorant issue with the atelier, and it's the whole measuring thing. The whole measuring very specific, formulaic, specific steps that you take, while at the same time being aware that perhaps that is in part what helped those people of yore whose work we adore.
Right.
But anyway, the reason for which I have an issue with that stuff is because I just have the impression that the work of Atelier, um, people who studied that method, it just looks very, very similar to me. And I think it's because actually of what you're calling your weakness, kind of that you kind of like that safety. So you'd like stay there and don't, and not you, but they don't try to move on from that
Right.
because the thing is that the bard drawings, that's not a style. All right, that
Right.
is just a tool for learning from which you have to move on to draw
Exactly.
other things, right?
Yeah.
And to paint other things. And so then I have the impression that people who go to ateliers feel very safe and confident, like they found their comfort. It's like not that they found their comfort zone, they made that their comfort zone, and now they don't want to go anywhere. Um and then that's it, that they just stay there. And so like, and I mean, honestly, to your credit, based on what you're telling me, you are clearly just jumping out of the comfort zone, way far away from your comfort zone, and be like, I'm gonna hold the pencil way far back here and make go just stick to doing circles and stuff. And it's like, you should give yourself credit, I think, for that. Because so like now, not only do you have in your pocket the tool of the bard drawings, of the awareness of the exploration and the play that you were doing before, now you're also going to have the gestural tool in your pocket as well, because now you can use all of them when you go to make your drawings, or whatever you make.
Thank you for saying that, because it's been tough. Because once you kind of get to a level, like a level everyone says, "Oh, you're really good at doing it this way," and like I had a couple conversations with my artist friends this week on Instagram, and I'm like, they're like, "You just need to keep doing this. It's this style you have. It's just keep doing this." And it's like, oh, I don't. That's not what I want to hear, because guess what? I'm not, like, I'm doing this other thing. But also feels like, am I shooting myself in the foot? Like, am I just not being decisive in which direction I want to go?
I
So
don't think so.
I appreciate you saying that. And that's also very insightful, that it's not starting over, although sometimes it can feel like your results aren't as good when you do something new,
Right,
but it's adding another tool to the tool belt.
right.
And I'm just not sure. I'm kind of not sure which way I want to lean or whatever. So, but I also know, like, you're a great example of this, because your stuff to me looks like it borrows from academic techniques a lot, but I know you also draw from your imagination,
Yeah,
and you like long necks and like extend certain body parts and things like that. And so you're a good example of, moving beyond, using those tools and moving beyond to make your own work or whatever.
sure.
And circling back to our conversation in the beginning, I would say that's also an example of craftsmanship mixed with concept. I think we feel like concept is a dirty word here on this podcast, so I won't say concept, but I'll say personal expression.
Sure.
The way that you view the world, which is going to resonate with someone else out there. So we're talking subjective and universal at the same
Sure.
time.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just that, well, yeah, I mean, it's just that in terms of like the universality versus the individuality, I guess.
Yeah.
It is effectively, it's both at the same time, because for example, and I learned this when I started reading, because I mean, I'm really taking my time. It's called A New History by Paul Johnson, and it's a book about art history, and he talks about the Egyptians and the way that they did their proportions of the body and stuff.
Mhm.
And he doesn't say this specifically about the Egyptians, but just about proportions in general. And it's like, and the whole idea of that universality versus individuality is embodied in humans,
Yeah.
because first of all, we all have two eyes, a nose, a mouth, hair, a face, legs, hands, 10 fingers, whatever. And the proportions of all bodies are within certain proportions. Whether
Yeah.
those are the Greek or whatever you want, it doesn't matter. There's proportional there, because when somebody is out of the proportion, it looks terrifying, right? But at the same time, somehow we're all different within those proportions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
And that is
so then
beautiful.
right, so then that's where you have the universality and individuality right in the same place,
Yeah.
right in the same
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. I get what
So
you're saying.
then, right, so then that is the same with beauty standards. It's like there are beauty standards, and then each culture or group of people or whatever you want are gonna diverge a tiny little bit from the standard, but the standard is still there. The standard is
Right.
cross-cultural and across time, and that kind of stuff gives me goosebumps. Okay, because and I mean, I think that's actually what gives the importance to both art and beauty, that it's like it's cross cultural and across time.
Mhm.
Like the universality about stuff.
Yeah. I was going to say
Yeah.
universal. Yeah. And I don't know if we're wrapping up here. I don't want to open another.
Are you like do you how are you like keeping time or something? Because you've been like really accurate about, oh, we're running out of time, it's almost
I'm
over.
sorry.
No, no,
I'm
I'm
constantly having to be
curious.
on Zoom calls with this school program I'm in right now. So
Oh.
I'm used to actually, I have the free version, and you have like 40 minutes and then they cut
Oh,
you off.
yeah.
So I'm probably, yeah, I'm not in a hurry though. So,
No, no, no. I
not
was
in a
just
hurry. I don't mean
no,
to.
no, no, not at all. I was just curious because I mean I have the stopwatch.
Oh, no, I'm just trying to respect your
Yeah, no,
time. I know
no.
we
I just
did like a real firm hour last time.
no,
So
no. I was just like, how are you doing that? Are you? That was
I'm on
that
my
was that was just
computer.
what I was wondering.
It's just right up here in front of me.
Yeah, yeah, okay. No, no. I
Um,
mean, no. I mean, we can chat for a bit more. I mean, it's just that the conversation was, these. I've kind of changed the format a little bit because I don't want to be surprised anymore with what somebody says gonna say, because I don't want art is whatever you want it to be and beauty is another beholder, because I'm done with that shit. I'm done with it. So I've been having people on again whose definition of the subject I like, and then we just talk about it more and about other things surrounding the subject. And then for new guests, what I do is that I ask them before they come on
okay.
to kind of
And so
filter. Yeah.
hopefully I'm in the second category, I guess.
Yeah, that's why you're here a second time.
Okay. So, but beauty is not in the eye of the beholder then.
Not as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I guess based on what
Well,
we were talking about a second ago, it
I'm
might be,
teasing
but a little
only.
bit.
Yeah, I'm teasing only. But yeah, it's one of those things where if it is, it also isn't. Like it's both at the same time, you know.
Right.
So I agree with you with that. But I think people can have individual, like I like this word resonance. I was thinking about it before I came on here today. is that experience of something resonating. Because I think that leaves room. Like you're good to think. I think you're onto something. Keeping in mind the audience when we talk about art, I tend to forget about that part a lot, and then I can assign meaning to it in the way that makes sense to me. But a lot of experiencing art or experiencing beauty has to do with resonance, which is totally subjective. That's totally like individual. And maybe you'll disagree with me because I'm not trying to say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I'm saying, um, last time we talked about this, I think I was explaining it like I think of beauty, these moments where we experience beauty and it's really powerful, as like a temporary rending of the veil, like being able to see a glimpse into the divine, um, which is like this creative source that is so infinite and vast that it would be even these moments of beauty that we experience here in the temporal. I know I'm sounding kind of foo-foo, but our art can be so incredibly overpowering, like to the point of where we can be weeping in tears and
Sure.
destroyed sometimes. I mean, we've all had moments like that. They may be few and far between, but where beauty, I'll call it beauty, is like that. And that has to do with the it coming to you in that moment in your life where you're in harmony with that, which is rare. It's almost like the stars align. There's that resonance in your soul or wherever that comes from, and it signifies to you that this is something big. This is something beautiful. I am moved. I'm touched. My heart has been affected. And those are those moments for me. Those are those best moments for me for the audience regarding the work of art, right? And I forget where I was going with that. But yeah, so, but at the same time, there's someone on the other end, at least if you're talking about an artist making the work. And so he or she is picking up on that. Um, they're folding it into their work they're doing, which comes from their subjective perception of the world, and then connecting with the audience. And in that sense, we're communing together in what it means to be human beings, what it means to be
Sure.
alive, and that's the universal part. So in some sense, we can all relate to it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have that effect. Um, yeah,
Sure. I mean, isn't resonance a term? Isn't it when something produces a sound, it emits sound waves, and then that reaches another object and it makes the other object vibrate as well?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like when two strings are plucked and they're in harmony, they will resonate together in the same wavelength
Mm-hmm.
or um, complementary wavelengths.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I that's just a little illustration. I don't
Sure.
know if it captures the whole definition of beauty or anything like that. But I was thinking about that today and I liked it.
No, I mean, I think it does because there's an emitter, something or someone that emits something,
Right.
and there's a receptor of that which was emitted,
Right.
and depending upon the circumstances, it reaches the receptor and moves them as well with the sound wave or not, depending on what it
Yes.
was.
So you're talking about empathy too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I kind of sometimes I have mixed feelings about the the term subjective um because even though, say for example, that both you and I are physically in the, like, I'm on this side of the street and then you're on the other side of the street and we both see a car crash,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And when the police come, or whoever it may be, I tell what I saw and then you tell what you saw, and the account of the event is probably different.
Yeah.
Like, oh, maybe you heard the sound earlier than I did, or you heard something that I didn't hear, for example.
Yeah.
Um, but the source material is the same.
Right.
So not only is, for example, like the location is the same, the event is the same, right? Those things are the source material, like the time of day, for example, like
Yeah.
when did it happen, when in time, this type of stuff. Like the
Yeah.
source
Those
material.
things are immutable.
Right. So I think that's another pairing of universal versus individual, because it's like universal is like the event itself and all the things that go along with the event itself that occurs whether there were witnesses or not,
Hmm.
versus the individual, which is what each individual saw from their vantage point, you know?
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, I don't want to cut you off if you
No,
weren't
no,
done
no,
there.
I'm done. Go ahead.
I That's a really good analogy, really cool analogy. I'll probably remember that for a while. But like again, I don't know. I guess I just have like this complex, this guilt, like feeling guilty that what time is it? Can I launch into this next thing? Because this could be like a whole huge other hour-long conversation. But as individuals, we come to that car crash with my 44 years of experience on this earth, which is second by second different than yours has been, however many years you've been on this earth. And our experiences help shape who we are and our perception of the things around us. So I may be colorblind and think that the car was green while you thought it was red or whatever. And that contributes to our subjective experience of an objective, immutable series of source material. And that I think that analogy works for taking in art as well.
Sure.
And then again, that also kind of points to the fact that your art that is pure craftsmanship still might have some subjective effects on the viewer,
Sure.
regardless of whether it is objectively the best works at the, I keep wanting to say Beaux Arts ball,
At the
but that's
salon.
not a salon, or not, or maybe the subject matter of X artist at the salon, maybe his technical skill was by and far away the highest, like objectively the highest um, at the salon, but the content that he chose to paint about maybe just didn't have the power that someone with less skill, you know, hit upon at the right time, at the right place in that culture and history, things like that. So I think even within art that is objectively skilled, that exists,
Sure.
things like subjectivity. But again, I think the theme of this conversation is that it's both.
Hmm.
Um,
That seems right. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, I don't. Well, no, you're not using Zoom. Never mind. We have definitely broken the hour-long mark, and I'm going to index the timestamps with roughly the subject that we have talked about every so, because yeah, that's like something that has happened since changing kind of like the format of the podcast a little bit, that it's like the discussion of art and beauty isn't as strictly marked as before. I was like, what is art, blah blah blah, and then what is beauty, and that's it. That was like the chapter. But yeah.
Well, that's a good way to start.
It is a good way to start. Yeah, speaking of finding a place to start, um and then you move it around until it's right. So, all right. So, well, I'll start closing it out, Scott. So, why don't you? I mean, is there? You said you're teaching.
I'm an online tutor, so
Okay.
I tutor the humanities for an online company. I do essay reviews and stuff like that. That's just one part of what I do with my days.
Okay. Okay. So, well, where can people find your the current stuff you're
My
drawing?
stuff.
Yes.
um, kind of same as before. I'm on Instagram at Kevin Scott Davis. I'm not as busy posting work on there, but I'm always in my stories, kind of just that's my community there. Um, Glowworm is the name of my music, and you can listen to Glowworm anywhere you can stream music. You can go to glowwormmusic.com and read about it if you really want to. And then I also just started a newsletter. So this is kind of my new little experiment. I wanted to kind of find a place that was away from all the algorithms and meta and stuff like that, and kind
Right.
of it feels like a real privilege. It's been cool so far. It's a lot of work, but I'm actually writing a newsletter, and it's like being sent out to people's emails and stuff like that. Or you
Nice.
can just look at it on Substack, if you've heard of Substack. So
Yes.
just have it under my name, Kevin Scott Davis. You can find me there too. And I'm kind of documenting myself, my drawing journey, my self-taught drawing journey, as well as kind of talking about stuff like this, kind of meaning, art, a little bit of inspiration, where I'm finding it, things like that. So if that's something that interests you, I would love for people to join me. It's totally free. And I'm doing my best. So yeah, Substack, Kevin Scott Davis. Go click subscribe. That would be great.
All right, I'll put all that stuff on the in the video
Okay.
description,
Thank
so
you so
that,
much.
yeah, of course, so that people, anyone that's interested, may and hopefully will go right ahead and join you there. So, all right, thank you everyone for watching, and please check all of the links in the video description if you want to support Scott and the podcast. And thank you very much, and see you next time. Bye.
Bye.